Historical Society's board, and I welcome you this afternoon to Zach Lewis's presentation. And as you can see, there's numerous photographs of Zach's work all throughout here. And please feel comfortable walking around and taking a look at the photographs after Zach has completed his presentation. The presentation is called Local Lens, Photos from Our Times. And as you'll know, Zach is an educator, a photographer, and a journalist. He's on our board here. He also works for WKTV, and his formal title is Digital Content Manager. I had to write that down because I probably would have messed that up. These photographs will be presented with insights into the narratives behind each frame. Throughout his discussion, Zach is emphasizing the significance of hyperlocal news and fostering a strong community. He also provided a glimpse behind the scenes of movie productions that utilize the picturesque village as a cinematic backdrop. I should have talked to Zach ahead of time about some of the, tongue twister words that he used in his presentation.
Oh, wait,
yeah, thanks. But Zach is a real asset to us, and I'm so happy to be with you so we can congratulate him in the publication of his book. And we have information on your seats about pre-ordering. In the event that you're not going to pre-order, we will have books available once we have access to them here at the Historical Society. So join me in welcoming Zach Lewis.
All right, so thank you for coming, everybody. First thing that we're going to do, in addition to speaking, Dawn just said that I'm a board member, and your continued generosity and support is really why we're able to do things like this. And if you're not a member, we've got membership cards floating around somewhere. So with such a small historical society, we do have an amazing membership base. And Maureen just said a couple of weeks ago that we added...
An increase of 73 members.
We increased 73 members, which is very good for any historical society, or any not-for-profit, really. So we're going to celebrate the village and the town, and like Maureen just said, I think I'm saying Dawn. Maureen just said that my name is Zach Lewis, and I play a few roles here in the community. I'm a reporter. I cover and capture local events, and I manage digital content. So in the community, I wear a few different hats, and I figured I'd do some prop comedy here and pull out all of those different hats that I have. So for this one, we have Zach Lewis Photography. So that is, I have that hat, which we'll go over those in just a minute. Pratt Munson, that's where I teach English as a second language, so we've got that. The Waterville Times, we have that hat too. Patty doesn't even have a Waterville Times hat. That's a special one there. And then we have the WKTV hat, which we just chatted about. We've got our Kirkland hat here. We've got a Chris Brothers hat, which will come in, keep that in mind for a little bit. And then we have our Kirkland hat and our Clinton hat. So a lot of different hats here in the community. And my journalism journey has been diverse. And given the size of this area in which we live, it's been very eventful. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. But to kick off this speech, which has turned into a million different things, because when I first did this talk, thinking about it, I thought that this would be out by now. This is my book, Clinton and Kirkland, which will be out at the end of June. It was supposed to be out now, but I don't know what happened. Publication dates got kicked back. So we were going to talk about that, or talk about this, and then talk about all of my little artifacts that I have. It just kind of morphed into all of those things. So hang on, we're going to have a lot of different topics to go over, but it'll all work out in the end, I think. We're going to start off with this guy right here, my grandfather. His name's Carl Chris, and he was a storyteller. And he told a lot of stories, and those stories were told over and over and over and over, and sometimes over and over again. And he was one of those guys that expected you to know exactly what he was talking about, even though you might not have even been born when the person he was talking about was alive. So that was kind of hard in conversation sometimes, because he would say, oh, so-and-so's house down the corner you know who it is, don't you? And I'd say, no. And then he'd say, no, you do. And then eventually, as I got older, I just agreed with him and said, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. So subconsciously, I think I knew that I needed to learn a little bit more about the history of this area, and the Historical Society helped me a lot with that because I became a board member a few terms ago, and I started to learn more and do research, and through that research it helped me to have better conversations with my grandfather, like if he'd mentioned, let's say, the Opera House, something like that. I might not have known where that was because that was very much closed by the time I was around. And very interesting too about that Opera House, I said I was going to try to bring in little, little pieces of history that I've been able to find. So in doing a little bit of research, this here is the Scholar Opera House from February 28th. It's a benefit for the Russian Relief. It was an entertainment and dance show. Admission was 50 cents. So something like that, I would never have, appreciated as much had I not been a part of the Historical Society and talked long hours with my grandfather about all of the history that's happened in this area. Especially, he talked about the bakery on the green, which is a picture that we're going to see in just a couple of minutes. And one story that he used to always tell is about Split Rock ginger beer. And he said that there was nothing else like it, there never will be. And so I guess over the years, I picked up a few full Split Rock ginger beers, which unfortunately I got these after he passed away because he would have gotten a kick that I found these full, and that then he would have yelled at me on how much I spent on them. You don't really want to know, because I've got another one too. I tried to get a full 6-pack, but one broke in mail and one sold for over $100, and I thought, better not. And then there's this one, which I think is probably the rarest of them all. I've never seen this. It's an orange soda, full with the orange aid top still on it, which is still a fun.
Was that the place down by Deansboro?
Yeah, in Franklin Springs, right? That's where they would have gotten the water from.
Dugwood, that's what I'm thinking, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to try to bring in little things like that. So the ginger beer was something that he always talked about, and then he would always talk about too farming, right? He was a farmer, and he had a small farm up on South Street, and he lived in Clinton for a long time, 90 plus years, but his family before him also lived in Clinton. And what they did was, for a business, they delivered ice. They had an ice business originally. And one thing that we have in the back, which now I think there's 2 or 3 kicking around somewhere, this is the original Christ Brothers ice pick that was from, let's say, 1920s right here. The reason I got this is because of living in Clinton and knowing the people at Access Federal Credit Union. The woman who was the teller, and I forgot her name, and I feel terrible about that, but she was actually, Rose, you might know who she is. She lived on your street next to Dick Williams when Dick lived there.
She's still there.
She's still there, yeah. What was her name?
No.
Yeah. Okay. It has slipped my mind, but anyway, to tell you the story, because of the app that they have at Access, I very rarely go and cash a check at the bank, but I was one day and I drove up and somebody said, hey, I have something that is your grandfather's. Not really knowing what it was, she started to tell a story that she went out to Boutville looking for anything that had Clinton on it, any sort of Clinton antique, and a vendor popped up from behind and said, hey, oh hey, there's Thomas from WKTV.
Sorry, I'm late.
Thomas, you're late. Anyway, to make a long story short, because I could go into a whole lot more detail, she lives next to Dick Williams, or she lived next to Dick Williams, and she said, well, what is this to him? And he said, well, that's Zach Lewis's grandfather's business, ice business. And so all of those stars kind of align while I was waiting in line at the bank, and that's how I acquired one of the ice picks, and we have one right in the back there too in one of the cases there. The Schwaggers, who we'll talk about in just a minute, they also have an ice pick I know of, and I think there's one more kicking around somewhere. So these things are rare, so when I see them, I get very excited and try to snatch them up. After the ice business, my grandfather went into the milk business, and here are a couple of the ads that we have from the Clinton Courier from the 1930s. 1944 was over there. We have his ice pick, his bottles, and the ruler down there. Now, some of these here, we have this one, which is the orange lettered milk bottle. Again, these are hard to find. They're like a needle in a haystack, but when you do find them, it's very exciting. The next step down from that is this one in size. I don't know the pints, the quarts, whatever they're called. And then one of the rarest, I guess, is this teeny tiny one. And if you come up at the end of the show, you can see it says Chris Brothers on there as well. So we've got one in all different sizes. And we try to collect those anytime that they pop up, let's say at Boutville or antique stores, anything like that. So my grandfather worked in the ice, and then he worked as a milk delivery guy. He delivered milk, and he said that on his first day, although he couldn't really help with the ice business, he was too young, and the blocks of ice, I forgot how much he said they weighed, but he couldn't lift those as a kid, so he was more in the delivery business here, and he said on his first day he fell down, but didn't break any bottles. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how he tells the story. And I just showed you some of those milk bottles right there. When I joined the Waterville Times as a reporter, which we'll talk about a little bit later because that's where all of these photos come from, I was able to write a story about National Farming Month or something like that. All right, Thomas?
I don't know.
It's all right. It's all right. I needed to take a sip of water. So with that article, I was able to come up with this one here, the Clinton Dairy Delivered Over the Decades. And this was important, this story, not only because I thought it was a great piece in the Waterville Times, but also because it was one of the first times that I was able to sit down and kind of get the story of him in some sort of chronological order. When he told his stories, they kind of jumped around, and like I said, you were supposed to know everybody. So that kind of left holes in the story of who he was and the businesses that he was a part of. So I'm very grateful for the Waterville Times and for the Historical Society, because in the final hours of his days here, before he passed away, the Waterville Times played a significant part in our final week together. In his, he kind of had a week of decline. It was during COVID, and it was right before the vaccine was released, actually probably a couple of weeks before the vaccine was released. So needless to say, it was kind of a hard time. And one of the fondest memories that I have with my grandfather and the Waterville Times is, I think it was either a Tuesday or a Wednesday when it was delivered or when we had it. And he couldn't really speak. Like I said, it was a week of decline. But I was able to read him that week's stories from the newspaper, which is something that he did every week, was he would read either the Clinton Courier or the Waterville Times, which took over a little bit, a couple of years after they closed. But the one thing that I was able to show him before he passed away was this random bald eagle showed up behind my house during the week that he was sick and passing away. And it was on Sanford Ave above the Oriskany Creek. And I had never seen a bald eagle in my backyard, let alone Clinton, before. So this was kind of a big deal. So I was able to show him that picture of the eagle before he passed away. And he passed away a day after my birthday, December 12th, 2020. So it's always a hard time, but with everything, you know, with all of those hard times, you think about the good and all of the stories that he told, and you know, I'm able to kind of collect all these little items from when he was alive and working in that business. So I'm very grateful for all of this. And we came here for journalism, not for my history here. So I graduated from Clinton in 2004, Clinton High School here. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, so I went to Herkimer. Broadcast journalism is what I went into. And then I went to Utica College for a little bit more journalism. And that's kind of where I came across a professor by the name of Patty Louise. Yeah. Now, I knew her as the teacher that was giving us 2008 presidential candidates to follow. And my guy's name was, I think, Richardson. Is that what it was?
Bill Richardson.
Bill Richardson. There it is. Okay, see, you still remember. But from there, from working with Patty at Utica College, I moved on to the radio business where I started for IBX, and I started to learn more about our community and really seeing why journalism was making a difference locally and what it actually does when people pay attention to the news. I discovered the power of storytelling and the effects of local news on our community. And through all of that, my photographs became an integral part of my storytelling. And this is where we have something like this, which was a few years ago. It's in one of the photos over here. It was on the green for, I think it was close to the holidays. The luminaries, right? It was a luminary set up there. Through the lens, I was able to capture events that words sometimes couldn't tell the best. And from radio, I went into teaching adult refugees English. And this time in my life was probably the most eventful, the most fun, the most fulfilling. I taught students from all around the world, from pretty much every place where there's people, every continent. They came here to Utica, and I would teach them what I called survival English for some. It was, learning how to go to the doctor, learning what to find in the grocery store, not drinking cleaner instead of juice because they put fruit on our cleaning jars or our cleaning bottles. So as you can see, somebody who might not know the language very well, seeing, strawberry on our cleaning supplies is a bit confusing. So for 15 years, I taught adult refugees and newcomers to the area English, all the way, like I said, from survival English to college prep. And my teaching career, again, could be a whole talk there was just so much that happened during that. But we're here for journalism, right? So about 2 years after the closure of the Clinton Courier, this is all happening at the same time, by the way, if we're losing time in this story. But it's happening all at the same time that the Clinton Courier closed, and that date, was it 2018? No, 15. Because 16, I think we started covering Clinton news. And I say we as the Waterville Times. The Clinton Courier went out of business, and that professor that I told you about, Patty Louise, she asked if I could cover the Clinton news that was taking place here in the village. And it was something that was truly special because I think she kind of knew how much I loved this area. And when she asked me to write down what was happening in this area, it was a great opportunity to document what's happening, and also I could share these stories with my grandfather as well. So given the long-standing connection to the area, like I told you, through my grandfather, through covering stories, reporting news in the community is something that I deeply cared about, and it was a dream come true just to kind of do it right here in this area. So through all of that, my photography started to improve, and I got to meet a lot of people. One of those people was Siri. Although we didn't meet in person, she did come to MVCC at one point. There was a time in 2016 or 17, I forget which one, where she revealed who she was. And when she revealed who she was, there was this, a chain of messages in my family that came down from cousins and whatnot, because Siri, who was Susan Bennett, went to school with my uncle. So, not really having that yearbook or anything like that, I had to track down the story that yes, she was actually from Clinton, and she lived on College Street, and then I think she lived on Dwight Ave here in Clinton. And she's probably our most famous person that nobody's ever seen before. But she was Siri on the original iPhone, the first one that actually had a kind of like a real voice. Now it's so AI generated, it's not even her anymore. But that was a fun one as well, to chat with her, because at the end of our call, she did the Siri voice to end it, so that was fun. Also, too, I got to run into a few famous people up the hill here, like Walter Mondale. That was a fun one to see. Through the college, we've had a lot of famous people show up. So each photo narrates a story adding to the fabric of our community here. And while reporting at Waterville Times, again, I started to really focus on how deeply the news mattered to a small community. And sometimes we're overlooked being so small by bigger organizations just because they have other things going on. So having a hyper-local newspaper is very important for those small things like, you know, board meetings. They're not that fun, but you know, they are vital to the community and they have to be reported. So local news is the pulse of the community. Last year, the Kirkland Town Library asked if I could put together a photography show. Not really knowing what to do, I thought, well, hey, I've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pictures of Clinton that I gathered with the Waterville Times, so let's put those on display, and that's what we did. Last year, the Kirkland Town Library had all of these photos that you'll see around at the end of the show here. You can take a look. Those were on display for a month, and it's called Local Lens Photos of Our Times, because they're for the Waterville Times. So that's where the Times came from. And let's just take a look at a couple of those photos that are around here, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of a background of them, and if you have anything to add, be my guest. So this one here was one of the first ones that I took for the Waterville Times. It was June 16th, 2016, and this one is a beautiful photo of the village, but I'm more impressed with the fact that I was able to climb a bell tower and get this photo, because I'm deathly afraid of heights, and I don't know really how I did that, but that was one of them. The next one was from July 16th, 2016. And if you were in the village, 2016 was an interesting time because they were taking down our beloved ginkgo biloba tree, which was in the now Dollar General parking lot. It was almost 200 years old, if not over that, and it needed to be cut down because when they built the grocery store there in the 1950s, they put a parking lot around the tree, and that kind of, over time, the roots were able to grow as well as they were supposed to. So that tree unfortunately had to come down, and there were people who had a bit of a protest with it, and one of them was this sign right here: "Please don't cut me down, I'm alive, and I will resprout." Unfortunately, it was cut down. This one right here is from August 2017. Again, 2016 was a fun time. This village shot here was taken when, why is his name Ryan Quinn? That's the person I'm looking for. When Ryan Quinn was on The Voice, he stopped by the village and did a little performance there, and that was probably the most people that I've seen for the Clinton Art and Music Festival in a long time, all in one spot, watching one performance. Again, the fabric of the community here, everybody coming together. This photo and this story might not have been told, had we not had a newspaper in the community. The next one that we have, again, Walter Mondale. I don't know why, but I have a bunch of photos of him. And here's another one preparing for his speech that he gave at David Whitman's inauguration as Hamilton's 20th president. And then I think it's this day is his last day as president, David Whitman, which is pretty interesting. The next one here, Patty talked about a couple of months ago at the last talk. This was the Oriskany Falls Mill fire. And Clinton was called in. I mean, everybody was called into this fire. It was huge. But one thing that I liked about this was Clinton had the big truck, the big aerial, what do you call that? Tower. Okay, there you go. Yeah. With all the water hoses that you can spray from the top. And over here we have scoons that you can see kind of looking off. And one of these, a photo like this kind of tells its own story, and you don't necessarily need the rest of what's happening to know that this is, a pretty big deal. And it was a huge mill fire. The next one that we have is something, if you live in the village of Clinton or Kirkland, you have to deal with, and that's flooding. Those 100-year floods really pop up every couple of years now. And this is one of them. This happened in 2017, and the Clinton Fire Department, I'm sure, was on their way to pump out a basement. This also was happening on the same day, 2017. This car actually almost floated away in that water because it had flooded so quickly. And that would be the old Chenango Canal. The next one here is a profession that is no longer a profession that a lot of people do, and she is no longer even in the village anymore doing the shoe store, as far as last time I checked. But this is a business that has gone away, and I was able to go in and talk with her about why people still get their shoes fixed and, let's say, not buying a new pair. And one thing that she said to me was comfort. Once you break in a pair of shoes, you don't really want to buy a new one. So that made sense to me. This one right here, our biggest, probably, event that's happened in the last 2000s, since it's turned 2000, is this one right here. And this was Craft Hockeyville. This was the actual moment that they announced that we were the winners, and you can see all of the excitement on everybody's faces here. We've got, there were kids who had they were in shock and surprise as this was all going down. And you can see people throughout the community as well, just very, very excited for what we could win. And then we actually did win it. And that was a fun time as well. During this time, Andy Burns was instrumental in getting us to Hockeyville, and Penny talked about this a lot a couple of months ago. I really like this shot because it tells all of it pretty much in just that one snap. Clinton, we did it. We did it because we won Hockeyville, and Andy Burns was very instrumental in getting that to happen. And that was the 100-year celebration of hockey, the thank you, Albert Prettyman events, all of that. This one, a favorite of mine because it was just so random. It was a July 4th parade, and if you're a journalist and you have to cover the same event over and over and over and over every year, you're not quite sure what to do to make it different. But as I was walking down the street, this family here just looked so photogenic. And they were waiting for everybody to go by for the 4th of July parade. So I really like that one because of their smiles, and it was very, very, very random. This here is for CPV Rescue and Sanctuary. Again, like I said, community is so important. And this is an organization that sometimes doesn't get the most recognition that it should. And it's CPV down the street, and they take in a bunch of cats and treat them very well to get them out the door and adopted. And this was from 2018. We talked about all of the different movies that filmed here in the village of Clinton, and this was one of them. It was for Odd Man Rush, if I'm not mistaken. And they needed to have extras for the movie, for a hockey movie. And that's right here at the Clinton Arena. I really like that because it was highlighted right there. I'm trying to think. There's something else I wanted to say about that one, but I've forgotten. That's okay though. This one right here, I had to rush and get my camera right before the sun went down. This was up at the top of College Hill, a nice sunset there, which is highlighted around as well. I tried to do not only taking pictures of people, but also different, the different scenery. Here we've got a retired English teacher, Debbie Hepburn, was doing a TED Talk at the Clinton Central School. And if you know anything about the school, she was there for quite a long time and was a beloved English teacher, and she came up and did a talk with her gong there, and it was a great talk. International Night at Clinton Elementary School. Again, I love going to these things because I spent 15 years at the Refugee Center. So anytime I have the opportunity, it's one of my favorite things to do. And this was, there was a lot of dancing, singing, everybody brought in food from their country, and they were able to enjoy it in 2019 at the Clinton Elementary School. When I was doing this show a few years ago, 1 year ago rather, this was a picture that nobody really knew much about. And I'll read it to you. It says, the Oneida's ancestral land on Austin Road in Clinton was lost due to government removal and colonization. This ceremony took place when the sacred land was returned, and that was July 17th, 2019. Again, something we don't really remember taking place, but it was a great event to be able to go out to. Next one, down here on the green. For hundreds of years, the green has been the central gathering point, and here is one of the first or second years that we were able to get a menorah over onto the green and celebrate Hanukkah. So that was an interesting event in 2019. A lot of people came out to watch the lighting of that. Then, of course, we went into 2020, and that was COVID time. And during COVID, everything was closed, and we didn't even have our 4th of July parade, and that's what this was for. Annual events like the 4th of July were canceled, and this was what was up on the 4th of July that day. A smiley face behind a mask. There was no parade that day. Also, too, college was taking place while the pandemic was happening, and here are a couple of the signs that they had. They welcome the new students, the older students welcome the new students as they come up the hill every year, and these were a couple of the signs that they had during COVID. One of my favorites here is a little bit of history coming to life down the street in the old burying ground. The Daughters of the American Revolution had a History Come Alive event where the people who were buried here would, the person who is living would tell that person's story next to their gravestone. And so that was an interesting shot that I got there. And we'll just go through a few more of these so that I don't continue to bore you all, but this is when they have their annual car show down at the school. K9 there. This is Chol Majak, and he came into Clinton. He was running for the 22nd Congressional District, and he came in for a campaign stop, and I was able to chat with him. Interesting person. He was part of the Lost Boys from Africa that came. So it was great to actually hear his story and learn more about him as well. And here's our luminary, stories that you can't tell through words. Photos can help those along even more. Here we are with our 70th anniversary of the Altieri's restaurant, and here they are celebrating. Burns, Altieri's, those are two names in our history that'll always be there. They're etched in our history. So when they celebrated 70 years, it was a big deal. Oh, and here's Diana. Diana is from Kenya, and so, I took her to her first car show here in Clinton, and it was at the school, and she'd never been in a bug or a VW Beetle before. So there she is with that. I always get a kick out of that one. That was from June 11th, 2023. It says she posed inside of a classic car, another first since moving to the U.S. from Kenya. So from there, I'm here. We went from the Waterville Times to WKTV about a year ago. I took the position as a digital content manager at WKTV, where I've had a lot of fun. Over here, this is the movie that came into town, The Christmas Letter, and they sent me a hoodie from the movie, which I couldn't have been more thrilled about, because I was doing a lot of behind-the-scenes reporting for the movie for WKTV, and we had a lot of people who were very interested in it, and that was a lot of fun, just being behind the scenes, talking to all the actors and stuff like that. Writing, in the job that I do here at the WKTV, I'm a writer, reporter, produce things sometimes. I oversee website content. So a lot of behind the scenes goes into our work at WKTV that some don't really see when you turn on the TV. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. And in this role, I've been able to work on a lot more diverse stories in a bigger area. And it's always fun to come back to those stories in Clinton after covering them for the Waterville Times. Chevy Chase was in Utica, and this all goes back to Clinton as well. In a recent feature-length movie that was filmed right here in Utica, Chevy Chase, Brian Doyle Murray, and Randy Quaid are part of that movie, and part of it was filmed here in Clinton. Here I am with Brian Doyle Murray, which was really, really fun. This almost didn't happen, this interview. I went there so I guess let's back up a little bit. The production crew came into Utica looking for places to film their movie that would make it interesting and fun. And one of the houses that they picked was on the Parkway. And he was filming in one of those houses there. And when I got there, I had to keep on going back like 3 or 4 times because he wasn't there and he wasn't ready. So it was kind of one of those things where I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. So finally I arrived and they said, he's in the trailer, you can ask 2 questions, get out after that, right? So 2 questions, my first question is always like, what are we doing here today? So I knew that one was kind of gone, so I didn't know what my second question was going to be. And I asked him about his connection to Utica. Now, if you didn't know, he and his brother Bill owned the Utica Blue Sox at one point, and he had been in Utica a lot. So I asked him, what does he remember from it? And in our little bit of time that we had, he sang the Utica fight song for the Blue Sox, which he wrote himself. And I was very happy because I didn't really have to worry about those 2 questions because he just kind of kept on going and going. So that was fun too. And there's Kristen and Angus and I here. We are behind the scenes of the, where was it, up at Par? The Par Gym, I don't know what the name of it is. Something like that. It's a tennis place. But anyway, Kristen got a part in the movie. Kristen Copeland from WKTV. She was one of the anchors at a tennis match. She was the anchor. And Angus there is the lead of the movie. His name is Joe Michaels. And he was really, really nice to chat with as well. Here we are, West Park Row, the Christmas letter film. They wanted to be in the St. Mary's Church, but I think scheduling and things couldn't work out. So they were at the Stone Church up here. After the Stone Church, they moved on to, this is kind of out of order. The Stone Church was after this. This scene right here, where they're at the Schwager House, which is off of Old Kirkland Road here, they used the outside shots for the movie for a sleigh ride scene. And here you can see the crew with all of their equipment. That was pretty interesting to see. This is the sleigh ride sign you'll see in the movie. And this is Brian Posehn. Brian Posehn is a comedian, and he was right here in Clinton. He's a stand-up comedian. He's on various shows, but he was here filming, and it was just up the street, so that was a lot of fun to see. Then here's the Stone Church. They came back to do a wedding scene in the movie, and like I said, they wanted to use the St. Mary's Church, but they couldn't get it to work out, so they used the Stone Church. And it was for the Hammersmith wedding. And if you don't know who that is, I don't either. They're in the movie, so we'll find that out when it's released. But here's Scott Leonard, part of the church there. He was instrumental in getting them there, and he helped out with different parts. Oh, here's the mayor. The mayor of Clinton was having a good time as well when the crew came in. I was having a good time too as well. We went over to Utica Coffee, and this guy's name is Lance Bonza, and he is the person who is getting married, I believe, at the church. So we'll have to see how all that works in. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. The reason why the movie was filmed here is because the writer, Mike Cunningham, is from Ilion, and he really wanted to film in his old Catholic school. Like really wanted to. It was his dream, the whole thing. He just really wanted to be inside of his school. And he was. Here he is, here they are in one of the scenes at the Ilion school, which was really fun because chatting with Mike, who was from Ilion, and he wrote this movie. He now lives in Rochester. It's fun to talk to somebody who's local, and this scale of a movie is taking place. And here he is right there in the middle. So it's been surreal to watch the area turned into, the Hollywood in Clinton, right here. But my news coverage from the Waterville Times and photography kind of morphed into this, what I was hoping this speech would be about today, was Clinton and Kirkland, which will be out next month, at the end of the month. This is a new book by Arcadia Publishing. It's the first one from the Past and Present series written in this area. So it's a pretty special one. And I even got a foreword by Richard Williams. I don't know if it's pretty big. That's a big deal right there. And the concept of the book was pairing old photos with new photos. And here's an example of that at the Burns Agency. An interesting thing here is, we see the Burns Agency all the time. We don't think too much of it, but one of the interesting pieces is, at one point, it used to be a school, like part of the one-room schoolhouses that we had. There were many, many, many. I always want to say there's 30, but I feel like there's more. There was more, right? There was a lot of one-room schoolhouses throughout Clinton and Kirkland, and like I said, the Burns Agency was one of them. I'm just showing you a couple of my favorite pictures and pages from the book, because I don't think they'll let me show you the whole thing, which, that's good, because you gotta buy it. This one here I like because it shows just how little things change in Clinton sometimes. This hasn't changed from 1926. Although, I will say, there is this little section here which wasn't there, so a few things have changed, but nothing too major. One thing I like about this photo is that on this strip here was one of our first schools in the village, and in that school, one of the teachers was a brother of Millard Fillmore, who was our president, 13, 11, I can't remember which one. 13? This one here, this is chapter 2, but I like this because of the kid in the front. See? But this is a parade, the many, many parades that take place in the village, but this is going the opposite direction of how we go today.
Yeah.
This one was very random, I thought, but then a few years ago they had redone this culvert, or whatever you want to call it, and I didn't think that they would have an older photo of this, and they did at the Historical Society, so that was interesting, and I think the randomness of it is what I liked about this photo. And this one right here is my favorite page out of the entire book. There's a couple of reasons for it. The first one is the Kirkland Town Library opened on my birthday in 1901. And there it is. And then the next day in Clinton, the village was all excited on December 12th because we got our first trolley car. So in addition to having the library open the next day, we had the trolley car. Another one that I liked was this view, again, climbing up the bell tower. For me, it's more of I'm not over it, but I got over it at the time to get up to the top. Oh, is that it? Well, look at that, I'm done. Well, I swiped a little too soon, but what I was going to say is Clinton and Kirkland will be on store shelves in June, and it'll be at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but we will have it here at the Historical Society, and if you can get it from here, that would be great. Take the time now. I kind of wanted to go through this quickly so everybody had a chance to look at the photos. There are photos all around. Next to the photos on this table, we have a couple of artifacts I've been able to collect, in addition to these over here. And if you're not a member and you're thinking about it, now's a great time. That's all I have. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.